program. I'm really excited to tell you all about it and help answer some key questions about whether or not this will be something you'd want to evaluate. So thank you again for joining. So my name is Marty Griffith. I am leading the recruitment team in the Ameren Business Development Response Program. So my team will be the ones connecting with you to help you lead you through the basics of the program and see if it's something that makes sense for you to participate in or not. I've been in the energy industry for a little over 10 years, and a good portion of that has been with Enel, helping customers to evaluate demand response programs and see if they're a fit for them. So today we're going to be going over what the demand response program is and why Ameren Missouri is starting this program up. It's a brand new program here, but we've got lots of experience in other regions. Enel is the worldwide provider of demand response services, and we're in 11 different countries currently. And in North America, and specifically in the United States, we're in Texas and California, the Mid-Atlantic states, New York, New England, parts of the Midwest, and Appalachia. So we definitely have a lot of experience here, and we're excited to be helping Ameren Missouri to develop this program. So we'll first lead over, what demand response is. Then we'll go into what the specific program is in Ameren and how we will do it there. And finally, we'll talk about how you can get involved and get enrolled in the program and why you would want to. So first, what is demand response? At its core, demand response is a way to improve grid reliability and the cost effectiveness of the grid by recruiting customers to be on standby to help the electric grid if certain conditions arise. One example of those potential emergency conditions is below. So this is really talking about reliability here on the screen. On the chart, you see the purple background is the available electricity generation. So natural gas, coal, nuclear, wind, all the different sources of electricity production. And then the gray line is electricity demand. And this is a theoretical situation where you've got a really hot, historically hot summer afternoon. People are going home in the afternoon, 4 or 5 p.m. They're starting to crank up their home AC, but businesses are still running. And perhaps you've got a big outage at one of the major power plants. So suddenly you're facing a condition where electricity demand might outstrip the available electricity supply, and you could have brownouts or blackouts or voltage reductions or other nasty power quality issues. So by having customers, electricity consumers on standby for these kind of situations and having them ready with tailored energy reduction plans that they could enact to help avoid that grid disruption, you would curl down that electricity demand curve, put it back into that purple area so that you avoid any of those nasty power quality issues. So that's the main reason that Ameren Missouri is developing this program, is to help with that sort of issue. Another main reason to do these programs is to help improve cost effectiveness for everyone on the grid. Building electricity capacity is very expensive. You need additional transmission, you need additional generation, and to handle just that peak of the peak where the grid is only consuming that amount of energy 1% or less of the time is very expensive. You can imagine if you were a manufacturing facility and you're installing a piece of equipment that only runs a few hours of the year, that better be a very valuable piece of equipment to be worth, and you'd have to pay a lot of money for it to generate a lot of benefit out of it for it to be worth that investment. It's the same thing with an electric grid. We really want to reduce the amount of excess capacity that the grid would have to build and extend that out so that ultimately it's more cost effective for all the ratepayers on the grid and we can keep electricity prices down. So twin benefits of a more reliable grid and a more cost effective grid. And again, we're doing this all over the world and all over the United States, and I'm excited that we're bringing it here to Ameren, Missouri. How do people participate? Everyone's got a different way of doing it. We've got 14,000 sites throughout North America that are currently participating, and that means we've got 14,000 slightly different ways that everyone participates. For some people, they make a big energy reduction. They'll reduce a lot of their overall consumption, and for some people, they're going to just be doing little tweaks here and there. It really depends on your specific operations and where you have flexibility or don't have flexibility. Just some examples would be manufacturing, all sorts of different manufacturers, educational facilities, healthcare facilities, government organizations, wastewater treatment facilities. You can really name a whole different type of operations that would fit into this. So it's not that one particular type of customer can participate and others can't. And why you participate, ultimately, at the core of it is that what we're showing here. First, you would earn revenue. So for every kilowatt that you reduce, you would get an actual cash payment from Enel to you, depending on how much you reduce. Second is operational reliability. So for some of you, especially in manufacturing, there's sensitive equipment that you might have. It could be IT equipment for a school district. It could be specific types of manufacturing machinery in the manufacturing environment that if you experienced a voltage reduction or a blackout, that could potentially damage that equipment or create scrap or create a condition where it's hard to restart that piece of equipment. In order to avoid those critical pieces of equipment having those issues occur, if you just take them off the grid during that period of time in an orderly fashion, kind of bring that operation down at your convenience rather than at when these grid conditions occur, and then starting them up naturally when the threat has passed. That's a nice way to avoid these kind of issues that could occur with your equipment or electronics. The next benefit is a more reliable grid. So we're going to reduce the chance of blackouts and brownouts in the first place, and you get to be a part of that. So a lot of our customers will actively promote that on their websites. They'll be out there evangelizing the fact that they're doing this and participating in it with their vendors or with their customers or their stakeholders. And it's a way that they show that they care about their local community. And finally, it helps the environment to improve. So the power plants that normally handle that really small sliver of the year that you might see one of the conditions are typically going to be on the dirtier end of the spectrum of the generation that's available. The diesel generation, for example, is a key one that steps in during that time to help during these periods. So the idea is that we don't have to use those dirtier sources during these very few periods of time of the year, that the air quality will generally improve and we'll have less emissions associated with those dirtier sources. So it's just a way to improve overall air quality. And again, that's something that a lot of our customers promote actively, is that they're good corporate stewards of the environment and that they're contributing to the community and the world. So specifically in Ameren, those were all kind of general, what is demand response, why would you do it? This is going to be the specifics of the Ameren program. So anyone who's got enough energy consumption essentially can participate. So there's no specific threshold that we have in mind. Our core idea would be that it's enough, it would generate enough revenue for it to be worth your time to enroll. But we think typically 100 kW or more of reduction is a good place to target to make it worth your time and have it make sense to evaluate. What does it cost? It doesn't cost anything to participate. This is a program where you elect to participate. It's not something where you're going to be forced to participate. And if you do choose to participate and you sign up and enroll in the program, and for any reason you're not able to participate on game day if you're called upon, there's no financial penalty that could be assessed to you for underperformance in any way. So we take on all the costs. We help to educate you, get your equipment ready to participate, and ultimately get you into the program at our expense. How do people participate? All sorts of different ways, as we mentioned before, but the duration is going to be somewhere to 1 to 4 hours. So you'll want it to be an electricity load that you can do without for that period of time. Our experts will help you craft energy reduction plans. So that's a big key of this and a big role that we play. Because we've got so much experience throughout North America and elsewhere, we can help you to come up with some strategies that will minimize the disruption while maximizing the benefit. The program is going to be a summer-only program, so the May 1st to September 30th is the window of time in which you could potentially be called for an event, but of course, it makes sense that this would be called more frequently when it's really hot out. So you'd expect it to happen more frequently in July and August than you would in June or September, let's say. And it will be in the afternoon, so likely 2, 3, 4 p.m. start time, and then it'll run 1 to 4 hours from there. So kind of mid-afternoon, early afternoon range is when you might be initially asked to make that energy reduction and then maintain that state for a few hours. In terms of how frequently you might be called upon, this is not something you're going to be doing every day. They're going to use it only when we hit the really, really peak times of the summer. So there's only one, you can only do one event per day is will be called. So if you have an event that starts at 2 p.m., you wouldn't be called from 2 to 4 p.m. and then again from 6 to 8 p.m. It would just be that 2 to 4 p.m. time frame. And you couldn't be called more than 2 consecutive days. So if you got called on a regular Tuesday and on a Wednesday, you could not be then called on that Thursday to participate again. We expect over the summer somewhere between 2 and 5 events per summer. So it's the first year of the program. We'll build a better understanding of how frequently we call in the future, but it's intentionally designed so that you're not having to do it every day or every week. We really want this to be used just when the grid really needs it. And you'll know that there's going to be an event because we're going to notify you a variety of different ways, and I'll get into that in the next slide. Oops, sorry. So we notify you via text, phone call, and email. You'll have 1 hour of advance notice to make these reductions, but oftentimes you'll have an idea that one of these events might be coming, as it is, again, coincident with heat waves. So you won't be entirely surprised when one's called if you already know that it's going to be the hottest day of the summer thus far. You'd have 1 hour of advance notice, so you get that phone call, email, and text message for all of your personnel that you want to be involved in this process. So it could be 3 people, it could be 10 people. If there's 10 people that need to know that the event is occurring, you'd enact your energy reduction plan after you're notified. If it only takes you 10 minutes to make that energy reduction happen, you can wait right up until 150 in this example here. Or if it takes you a while to make that an orderly reduction, then you can start right when you get the notifications. You can start reducing your energy consumption. The event, again, will last somewhere between 1 and 4 hours. And as soon as the event is over, we will notify you via text, email, and phone call again that you can restore normal operations. So this is an example of what a typical energy reduction pattern might look like for someone who's participating in the program. And in terms of what we do and why we are a part of this is our main goal is to help it make it easy for you and to help you maximize the benefits you get out of the program. So as I mentioned earlier, a big key of that is working with our experts to understand your energy consumption patterns and understand the revenue associated with different energy reduction strategies. So you might be thinking of a couple of different electrical loads in your facility that you could tackle, and you'd want to correspond that to a level of benefit for each of those different potential strategies. Some people that do this program want to turn the whole plan off at the breaker to maximize the revenue they generate from the program because it's significant enough for them and worth the downtime to want to do that. Very few people do it that way, but some certainly do. Other people just make a very small reduction, 5–10% of their energy consumption because most of their load is something they just can't do without even for an hour or two. So they only have smaller things that they're able to enact to make this program work. When you're in an event, you'll know how you're doing for qualified meters that have enough energy consumption on them because we will install real-time energy monitoring devices. So that'll just be something that reads your Ameren utility information and reports it back to a web-based platform. You'll then be able to get this information either on your iPhone or Android phone or on a desktop computer when you would go in through a normal web browser. You can pull up your energy information. It will give it to you in near real time so that during a demand response event, you can actually look at this, see how you're doing. If you are shy of your targets when you look at this information, as you see here in this example on the left with Ester Manufacturing, you can do a little bit more potentially to maximize your revenue. So in that example, you see exactly that. You see that Ester Manufacturing was notified. They started doing the energy reduction plan. That's the dark green line. Their goal is to get their energy consumption down into the green box, which would be their target area. They looked like they were a little bit shy of targets. So they did a little bit more, and they got deeper throughout the event, and eventually they ended up hitting their target areas and getting into the area where they're maximizing their revenue. On the flip side, if you log in and you see that you've already eclipsed your target, you can minimize the disruption and back off your energy reduction plan a little bit so that you got it right on the head. So that's why we install this energy monitoring equipment. And again, this equipment doesn't affect anything in your facility. It does not affect the power, does not affect any equipment. It just reads the energy consumption of your main electricity meters and reports it back so that you can have access to that information. And we're doing this for a lot of different organizations. Here's just a couple examples of people that we're working with currently. We've got a lot more names we could put up here, but you see a good smattering of people who are food processors or healthcare or government. Basically anyone who uses significant energy consumption could potentially be a fit for this program depending on how much flexibility you have. So the process of getting started is fairly simple. It starts off with a technical analysis and conversation with your teams. So at the end of this presentation, I've got my contact information available. I'd love for you all to shoot me an email if you'd like to explore this program further, and I'll link you up with our experts and my team, my recruitment team. But the process from there, once you've sent me that email and you've requested engagement with us to evaluate this, is that we will pull your energy information from Ameren. So we'll do a technical validation. We're actually taking your interval data and we're seeing how much energy you typically consume during the window of time when these programs when these events could potentially occur. We'll schedule that conversation with you and have this available for that meeting in most cases. And then we will have a conversation with you about what your operations are like. When do you operate, what time of day, what load is, what equipment is operating during those times of day, where do you think you might have some flexibility? We talk through those different potential energy reduction strategies and the details of the program to outline a couple of potential energy reduction plans and match that up with your interval data so that we know what amount of kilowatts that could potentially reduce. From there, we would be able to create a business case. So we'd have a revenue model saying, given the energy reduction plan that we discussed when we were on the phone, here's what we think the revenue potential is for your facility. And if that revenue model looks attractive to you for that energy reduction that you would do and is worth that disruption, then we would provide you with our demand response order form, and you'd sign that and start the process of getting enabled into the program. This technical validation does not cost anything. It's totally free. The interval data analysis that we do as part of this is very beneficial. Even if you end up not enrolling in the program, just having that information available is very enlightening for some people because it gives them a different understanding of how their facility operates. So I think that analysis in and of itself is worthwhile. And ultimately, the decision is yours. There's no cost to sign up. But of course, we want to ultimately engage with and sign up people who think that the benefits of this program are worth the energy of, investment of time and energy into getting into the program. So once we've signed that demand response order form, we would then go about any meter upgrades if we need to do so. Most of you would already have interval meters installed, so we won't need to do any extensive upgrades to the metering, the Ameren metering itself. What they normally will need to do is to come out and install a pulse output, just a digital output that allows us to hook up our meter. That does not require de-energizing your facilities. You don't need to stop using energy for any period of time to do that pulse output installation, which is what most of you would need, not need to upgrade your actual meters themselves. So once the pulse output is installed by Ameren, we will install our Enel X site server. So that's inside of that site server is about a shoebox size enclosure. And inside of it, there's a wireless air card that allows us to communicate with the device via cell signal and an energy meter. So again, that piece of equipment does not link up to anything other than wall outlet power and the utility meter. It doesn't communicate with your network. It doesn't affect any of your equipment. It just allows us to communicate to it so that we can then provide that information to you in a real-time basis. Once we've got that meter installed, we make sure that the data is accurate by comparing it against your utility bills. And then we would conduct a test with you at your convenience, where we would run you through the paces of one of these events by sending you the notifications via text, email, and phone call, and having your teams respond to make sure we've got all the right contact information on the right people on our list to contact in the event that there was a real event. For some customers, you're going to want to actually do a test of your energy reduction strategy to make sure your teams are familiar with it or to get a better understanding of exactly how many kilowatts you would reduce prior to getting enrolled for this summer. But that is not a mandatory requirement. It's just something that we think is a good best practice for most people that want to get enrolled. And then you'd be ready to enroll in the program. The first date that this program goes live is May 1st, but we will be taking rolling enrollments throughout this summer. So ideally, we get you all started as soon as you're possibly able in the evaluation, because it does take 6 to 12 weeks to fully enable a site to be able to participate. And if we can have that conversation in the next few weeks and get that paperwork signed, we would likely be able to have you starting here on May 1st. Ideally, we'd have your order form in hand by April 1st. Would guarantee that we could reliably get you into the program starting in May. So here's my contact information. I'll leave this slide up. Feel free to write down my phone number and my email address. You can shoot me an email right now with your contact information if you just want to start about scheduling the next steps. And I look forward to those conversations very much. While we've got a few more minutes left, I think I might go over some of the common questions I get from a typical customer who's evaluating this, and just go over some of those things that I hear frequently from people who are deciding if they want to participate or not. The first question is always, what happens if I don't participate? What happens if I sign up for 500 kilowatts, and then I get called for one of these, and for some reason I really just can't do it that day. I can't do anything. So in that scenario, there will be no penalties or fees. You wouldn't in any way be charged out of pocket, but it would impact the amount of revenue that you're potentially able to earn. If there's only one event for the summer and you don't participate in that one event, you would get no revenue, but you would also have no penalties or fees again. If there are multiple events and you don't participate in one event, but you do participate in the other events, we would average your performance across those events, so ultimately you would receive revenue in that scenario. So you're not totally out of luck if there's just one event and it happens on a bad day for you. We do expect that occasionally people are not going to be able to participate for one reason or another, and that's why we're building a portfolio of many sites that are participating, so we're not relying upon just one customer to participate in this program. Another frequent question is, what do I do, at my facility? I would harken back to that every single person is going to have a different way of doing this. Some people make a small reduction, some people make a big reduction. It's really all about what fits with your particular operations. Another common question is, what do I do with the metering? So I've got it in there. How do I log in? What do I use it for? The core of it is using it during a demand response event. So when you're called, you get that notification. You want to pull it up on your phone. We've got an app on the App Store that you can download. You can have it ready by entering in your contact information. Set that up during the enablement process. You can pull that up right away. In that tool, it'll have how you're doing in the event, and it'll have a copy of your energy reduction plan that you've talked over with us in advance. That energy reduction plan in there is your guide. So if maybe the person that is the key person that set this program up in the first place isn't there, but you've got your team that's sort of familiar with the program logged in, they can see what that plan was that they had worked out in advance, and they can go about doing those steps. If any one of those steps in that energy reduction plan is not a fit for you for that day operationally, you can choose not to do that portion of your energy reduction plan. But again, our goal is to sort of set up a plan in advance that helps guide you through one of these events, and that's accurate towards how many kilowatts you would participate with. Other common questions that I expect I'll get specifically in Ameren is, what's Ameren's role versus Enel's role? We are going to be handling this program in terms of recruitment, getting you enrolled, getting the metering installed, notifying you, doing settlement on how you performed. Really, we're your main point of contact for pretty much everything you need in the program, but we're partnered with Ameren. So they're aware of the program. Your key account manager or customer relationship manager knows that this program is going on, and you're certainly welcome to reach out to them and ask them what their thoughts on this program are as well. But this is entirely in partnership with them, and we've kind of gone through the process hand in hand to create the program and the guidelines and all the different rules associated with how you participate. Let's see, other key questions I commonly get. Another question that you'd probably have is, how much money am I going to make if I participate in this program? That will be an output of the business case. In this region, it's $25,000 per megawatt per year that you would enroll. So everyone's going to have a different amount of revenue they generate based on how much they reduce. So I think that covers the core of this program, why you participate, and my team is looking forward to those conversations with each of you about how your facility may or may not be a fit for it. So that's all I had. Thank you all very much for joining us. I believe a recording will be available for this, and we'll be sending some follow-ups to the people who registered for the webinar afterwards. Thanks, everyone.